do overtime? If so, what situation would call for overtime from a concept artist?
I have done some overtime. At the company I'm at right now, the schedule is pretty harsh, but I haven't had to actually put in a lot more work than I have to. More than anything, it just happens where if you get behind and you have to catch up, you always got to put in hours. Only problem with the game industry is that they don't compensate you for that kind of stuff in terms of pay. So you are obviously working for free for them. But if you care about the project, you'll want to do it because you want to see the project done. If you're an hourly contract kind of person and you put in more hours, obviously you get paid more, so that's a benefit towards you. But in terms of where I am at right now, if I were to put in hours, overtime, weekends and stuff like that, I only do it because I want to see the project done and I care about it. So it was a case where when I was working at Technicolor, I would definitely put in a lot of work in terms of stuff that was there was just so much to do and there weren't enough people to do it. You kind of have to suck it up and do it. And especially when you're first starting out, I think you kind of have to put in your time and dues before you start to demand a little more. So.
All right. Thanks for that, Peter. I'm going to go back to a question Michael has. Actually, it's a two-part question. The first part is, let me see here. I have a lot of experience with figure drawing and anatomy in particular, but what would you suggest to strengthen figure drawing from your imagination? And the second part of the question is, you mentioned insects as a good starting point to branch out towards more mechanical things. Are there any other things you can suggest to draw to help in developing an aptitude towards mechanical drawing?
Let's see.
So the first one had to do with the figure drawing from imagination. What would you do to strengthen that?
In terms of strengthening drawing from imagination with figure drawing, if you're confident with your figure drawing skills when you're drawing from life, I think it should start to automatically transfer over into your imagination drawing. If it's not and you're having a hard time with that, then I would say actually start writing. Create your own stories. With characters, when you're designing something from your imagination, just imagining something visually only takes you so far. You kind of have to design and develop and create much more content behind what that character is in terms of even the personality of the character to start to be able to see what you're trying to design. So for me, I do, I'll do some writing, but I definitely do a lot of note-taking in my books and sketchbooks where I'll think of something like, okay, I can use this later on for a character. So a lot of note-taking helps when you're designing something from your imagination. So a lot of people tend to just sit there and try to draw and sketch. And I tell you, a lot of times you just hit a wall. You won't be able to draw because you can't think of anything. You have to build up basically a category or a list or basically a catalog, a book of stuff that you note-taked on basically and be able to I don't know, lean towards to be able to help you design stuff. So for me, a lot of note-taking. The second part, what was it?
Oh, the second part was related to you mentioning how they should draw
mechanical stuff.
Yes, mechanical.
Yeah. Yeah, the insects were, for me it helped a lot. But if you're having, again, trouble with that, on-site drawing helps a lot. Obviously, if you're drawing from life like cars and tanks. I don't know how much access you would have to like military stuff, but you can always go to like the local museums, military museums or plane museums, and that's definitely a great way to start. If you're trying to draw from the imagination, obviously you're going to go with something more sci-fi, something like something doing right now. But I'll read a lot of books too. Look at different artists' inspiration in terms of that. The sci-fi stuff and the mechanical stuff. It's a difficult transition. Some people have a better time with the mechanical side, other people have a better time with the organic side, and they have that weird transition where they'll start strong on one end and then they kind of stumble at the other. So if you're finding that you're stumbling on one particular side, let's say your mechanical side, definitely focus on that a little bit more and expose yourself to many different kinds of artists more. It's going to be a lot more technical in terms of drawing, so really focus on your perspective. Learn how to eye perspective really well and learn how to just start well, it applies to both, but being able to draw real simply.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Our next question is from Oliver. Uh, Oliver asks, what is the difference between designing for video games and designing for animation?
With games, I don't know. I guess it depends. I mean, in the gaming industry, it's very similar to actually making like films, but the genre and the styles can be very, very, very different. Whereas if you go into animation, they're very specific on what they do. They're both storytelling, so that's not too much different there. But I'm not sure how to put it, but I guess it'd be more of a hand in the game industry where you're not creating, the ideas will be already done for you, so you kind of have to be the person to just develop the look of it, whereas in animation and film, you kind of have to be more of a storyteller and design the emotion behind what those characters are going to be like, because you got to create a lot of content for video games, whereas with film, it's very, very specific on what it needs. So.
Awesome. Our next question is from Junko. He asks, again, if you don't hear back anything from companies for a while after sending your portfolio, how long would you say to wait till sending another one?
To the same company?
I'm assuming to the same company. Yeah.
I wouldn't send a portfolio. Well, let's say you send a portfolio out to one company and you don't hear back. I would say wait about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days at the most, and just email them back. Just ask them, did you receive, my portfolio? Just wondering if you got it, and don't send it to them again. I would just try to communicate with them through email and just make sure that they got it. If they got it, they'll most likely tell you that they did get it and they looked through whatever, and they're just, well, they'll give you a small excuse, but don't be offended by it. Again, just follow through after about 3 or 4 days. Just email only. Don't really just don't send the whole another link of your work again to them. So more than likely they'll have gotten it. And if you don't hear anything, I would just say move on to try other places.
Okay, and there's a second part to the question that he added. He says, do you recommend a physical printed portfolio or sending one online?
That does depend on the company. Some companies will ask for hard copies. The hard copy can even be like a burn or a DVD of your work. But more than likely nowadays, it's very digital. It's all online websites and blogs. For me, I have an actual printed portfolio, but I'll only take those if I get an interview. More than anything, I just send out online blogs, links to these companies. That's all I ever send out.
Okay. Miguel has an interesting question. He says, essentially, I'm self-taught, but I would like to teach, or I like to teach a lot. How did you get your teaching gig at the Art Center?
Well, I used to TA for my teacher, my instructor, which is the class that I'm teaching now, was the VisCom 4, which is this dynamic sketching. And I would TA for him a lot, and I would actually cover for him several times if he had to go on business trips or whatever, so he needed somebody to cover. And that was actually my first initial experience of just teaching. I even did, public speaking for like high schools and stuff like that. I would go to different high schools and just do small workshops where I might not get paid, but still I'm just trying to get that experience of interacting with people. For me, it was an unfortunate event where my instructor was killed, so I kind of had to debate. Art Center had asked me to take over because me and him had always talked about taking over for his class and actually developing another one with him. But now that he's not here, they need somebody to replace him, so they had asked me to do it.
Okay, and I think our last question will be, what is your favorite piece? Of all the drawings and illustrations you've made, do you have a favorite piece?
A particular piece that I've done?
Yes.
Let me see. I don't know if there's anything on my blog that I mean, I like all the stuff that I've worked. Maybe not a particular piece, but maybe the project that I've worked on that I've enjoyed. So there hasn't been an individual piece that I've always kind of favored towards, but there have been projects that I really, really are fun to. There was one particular project I worked at the company, which was the Warhawk game. I really enjoyed developing vehicles and stuff for this particular game. One, I hit a lot of different aspects of it, you know, the weapon designs, the vehicle designs. It was a really good learning experience for me. But no, there really is no one particular piece that I really felt attached to. For me, I don't really feel attached to any piece because, you know, a lot of artists are very protective of their work. For one, they don't want to show their skills, they don't want to share the methods that they've done, and they feel like they're losing something if they, you know, if they somehow lose a piece. But for me, it's like if I were to draw, you know, this and I deleted it without saving, I really don't care. Even if it was a completely full painted piece, I really wouldn't care because I can do it again. And I don't feel any kind of attachment to any of this kind of stuff. And a lot of artists can't do that. Some can, some don't. For me, I do.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Peter. Well, we've basically reached our time limit. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's live Q&A. For those of you who have not yet seen any other of the workshops, I would say go to our CGMW online website and check out the other workshops that are still available for purchase. Also, the live Q&As from last week will be made available this Monday, and those from yesterday and today will be made available at the end of the week. So check back on the site for those. And again, I'd like to thank Peter for just an amazing workshop and for participating in our live Q&A. Thank you, Peter, and great work.
You guys. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
No problem. And yeah, that concludes our workshop for today. Thank you.